It's arrived. No, not the classic board game. Airfix's 2022 new tool Buccaneer. Let's take a look then. First of all, I've moved my camera to try and fit it in, and still just about can't get it in. Let's start with my first observation. This is Airfix's brand new tool, 1:48 scale Blackburn Buccaneer S2C/D. And it's hitting the shops now. The kit number is A12012. Now, this is one of two releases that came out on the same day from Airfix. I received one of them yesterday and one of them today. And one thing that they've both got in common is there is a slight redesign to the box. So the little red strip that goes up there with our paint schemes on seems to have been dropped. Both of these kits, this one and the Dornier DO17, have a full picture on the front, and actually I think it looks a little improved. You get a lot of artwork. The box looks really classy now. Yeah, I quite like it, I've got to say. Okay, it's a big box, but then it's gonna be a big plane. Let's take a look at the box first. On our side bottom edge here, we've got our usual warnings in multiple languages. Then it tells us that it's designed and tooled 2022, decals 2022, made in India. And it's also telling us we've got cartograph decals in there. And our sides, pretty much the same. It's just the box art to allow people to stack them on a shelf in a shop. And then, as usual, we have a little bit of history. 4 paint schemes, our paint call-outs, and our flying hours. We've got 4 flying hours, and it's a skill level 4. So 4 paint schemes. Fundamentally, they're all the same. What we've really got is 4 different decal schemes. There might be some slight variations that'd be interesting to see, but essentially it's 4 different decal schemes which span different periods in the Buccaneers' life. We've got Ark Royal 78, Hermes 69, Royal Naval Air Station, Lossiemouth in Scotland 70, and Royal Naval Air Station, Lossiemouth, Scotland 69. So 4 nice little decal options there. Yeah, but fundamentally all in the Royal Navy blue-grey. When it comes to the paints, there's quite a lot of paints listed there. As you can see, all 4 schemes have a lot of common paints. Okay, so as a kit, this is 1:48 scale. It comes with 288 parts, and we've got a wingspan here of 280 millimeters, a fuselage length of 402 millimeters, and just confirming we've got 4 decal schemes, and it also says 2 build options. Now, interestingly, on the box we saw that it's a skill level 4. If you go on the website, it says it's a skill level 3. So I'm assuming that we've got an error on the website. Yesterday, in the Dornier review, we had an error where they'd put all the incorrect paints listed, and now we've got an incorrect skill level. So, yeah, just be careful of the website. It's usually very accurate, but I've got 2 issues or 2 inaccuracies on 2 different kits on 2 different days. So instructions first, we have the usual Airfix A4 matte colour stapled instruction manual. We've got some history and specifications in different languages, as they always do. It tells us to wash the parts before we start. Certainly, you can get quite a bit of mold release agent on some of these parts. And then as we open it up, we've got the same again in a couple more languages. And then our assembly instructions, it's only a brief thing telling you to study the drawings carefully and things like that. Then we have our assembly icon instructions. So we've got phasers. We've got a new icon. I think it's fairly recently changed icon for do not cement. Everything else looks very familiar. So on our first page, it says, note, before you start, refer to page 4 to 7 and the separate scheme layouts, A, B, C, D, and then choose which scheme and weapon options to build. And then it's sort of listing them down there. So it's really depends on what ordnance you want to display is going to be the decider on your paint scheme, because the paint scheme is fundamentally the same as we've said. So your decals will be dictated by what you want to do with the ordnance, or the other way around. It depends on which way you want to approach it. But you need to make that decision now, as there's likely to be some unique features which require you to drill certain holes and stuff as you go. No doubt we have some other options in this as well. So, turning over to page 4, and we haven't got any step numbers at this stage, but we're saying scheme A and scheme B, and it is showing us some differences. If building the A scheme, drill out the 6 holes highlighted in blue. Yeah, and you can see in scheme B we've got 6 holes highlighted in blue, but they're different, so this one changes. So depending on your ordnance, what holes you've got to drill. So that's why we were making that decision early on, and they're showing you front on what that ordnance will look like. So yeah, actually I think I prefer the ordnance of scheme B at this stage. Yeah, and then as I suspected, they've done again with C and D, but we've got some ordnance there that's slung underneath, not just the wings, and I don't think we have that on any of the other schemes, do we? So there are some big differences. No, that's the only one with it slung underneath. I've got to say, I think I like the look of scheme B, but you've got the Bombay open in that, but then in these schemes you can have the Bombay open for viewing. So I think B is my way of going. Okay, page 8, we're still not on the build steps. It's telling us the position of internal decals. So we've got a whole page here dedicated to where we're putting the decals. It's listing the parts, and then it's listing the decal numbers, and also some paint instructions, so things that we might want to paint on the parts, I guess. So you probably find those 3 parts of plastic, then we've got a flat area where we're putting our decals. So I'm not sure. When we have a look at the plastic, we'll have a better view, but I quite like that. It means you've got a reference sheet right at the start, and actually you could, if you're clever, if you're doing a paint scheme that's not D, you can probably cut that out and have that stand alone, so you can use it for reference when you need to. Step 1 is on page 9, and we're starting, as we usually do with an aircraft, in the cockpit with building up all the seat. It's clearly telling us that this is the same seat used in all of our paint schemes. So yeah, it's giving us the paint callouts as we go, and then we've got what looks like decals for harnesses. Now, when you've got decals as harnesses, a little tip is to actually apply them to some foil and then you can very carefully, with a fresh blade, cut them out, and you can manipulate them and make them look just that little bit more realistic, and you're not going to rip the decals. But yeah, so front, we've got rear seat, tells us what it is, first 5 steps. Then step 6 is the front seat, and that gets us to step 9. In step 10, we've got an option, depending on what paint scheme you're doing, and then in step 11, we're adding that to the back of the, I guess that's the front seat. Yeah, it is front seat, beg pardon. We continue to build up the cockpit area. There's lots of individual parts going in. You have to keep referring to your decal cross-reference sheet. So you can be painting all of these individually, putting the decals on, adding them in one at a time. It's going to look really nice and busy. You've got all the little different control panels going in there, and then we are finishing up with our main flight dials, joystick and so on. Some parts, Airfix have started doing this more recently. You've got it in the Mosquito, certainly. Little directional arrows, tells you which way around a part should go. So that'll be on the back where no one can see it. So it's a nice little trick that they're doing. Step 18, we're putting what looks like a rear bulkhead in, and then those dials are going in, telling us, yeah, we're gluing it in there, but looks like that clicks into there and shouldn't be glued. Then our seats are going in, and then that looks like we're building up a nose. Right, what they've done is they've created an internal space so you can put weight in. So they want you to add 15 grams into there, then you can seal it all up. So that's nice. The fact that they've considered where the weight's going to go, lovely. Okay, this looks, A2 looks like the nose of the fuselage. I know the fuselage is coming in separate sections. You can see here how that's building up. So we're putting some more boxes and internal detail into there. Again, cross-reference with your decal information. Then we're putting the weight in the front. And then note, if fitting the crew ladders, drill the 4 holes in part A1 and refer to step 164 and 167 on page 35. So that's these 4 holes here. Tells us that we need a 1mm drill bit, and it's telling us that we need to make sure that we're doing it at 90 degrees. So it's actually showing you what angle to go in and drill it at. So that's really nice. Again, it'd be difficult to get that wrong. So as long as you're not rushing, that'll be fine. Then we're putting more detail into the other side. And then that clicks in. Wow. So they don't want us to glue that in, they just want us to click it in. Then we click the other side together. I guess once we've clicked it in, we're running a bit of glue in the seam, but yeah, initial location is by clicking. They are very confident in their fit then. Then we've got a little panel going in on the top. Gives us our paint shout out. As always, when it comes to Airfix instructions, just do a little bit of research, because what they'll do is they'll call out one paint colour for an individual part, and it might be that there is some individual cables that were a different colour or something like that, and they've just given you the main colour, and there might be some other bits and pieces that you need to pick out. So it's always worth doing a little bit of cross-reference and just skim the internet for some pictures of a Buccaneer cockpit and see how you get on. Then we've got our first clear part going in. And it looks like we've completed our cockpit for now, and at step 32 this looks like we're building up engines. So we've got internal parts, cross beams. We see a lot of this in Airfix aircraft now, and it adds a lot of structural integrity and does really help with the fit. So we're building up that. We can see there's some nice detail on there. We've got some bulkheads going in. There's a lot of parts, isn't there? A lot of parts. Then we're building up more of the engine. Okay, and then that goes in. So it looks like we're using one to locate it. So I'm not sure how the other one works. We will find out in a moment. Okay, it looks like we've got some individual hoses to go on then. Miss out steps 44 to 47 if building the model with the engine cover closed. Well, for me, if you've got an option to show something off, why wouldn't you? So we'll have anything you can have open. So it gives you there the options. So if you haven't it open, looks like we've got a mask that we can click into place. Use as a template to check correct size of cutout. Okay, so we're having to cut a section out if you want the engine uncovered, and we're using the mask to give us a size. So that's interesting. A little bit of skill needed there. I can see why this is a skill level 4 now. You know, that's not for youngsters. So we cut that out, and then we appear to be building something up for the wings. So we've got some parts there, clearly some flaps. So we have an option to build her with her wings folded up. It's always nice to see that as long as they've got all the little details and stuff right, it should look really nice. And given that this is quite a sizable model, that might be a good option for some people. So there's quite a lot of instructions going along with this. We've got some more drilling to do. And again, we're fitting parts without gluing. So we've got some, the wing edge where the fold is, we've got detail being added in there. And also, I suspect, the mechanism for folding. Okay. It's telling us to sand off for the wings up version one of these little aerodynamic lumps on the edge of the wing there. So that particular one went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in, file away on both sides of the wing. That's interesting. Then we're adding some of the structural parts. Then for wings down, we've got to modify C17 and C20. And again, we're modifying the wing. Interesting. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the same modification regardless. Okay. But we can see it there missing, and we're actually attaching the wing to the engine section here, and we've got a wing root there. Interesting. And then again, that top piece going on clicks into place. A little bit of drilling to do depending on what paint option you're going for, and some small part going in, and then it's saying use part H10 as a mask when painting the model. So effectively you can then click that into place and leave that all covered. So clearly suggesting that you paint that separately and then install it after painting once you've removed the mask. Yeah, assemble this part at the end of the build. We're on step 69 now, and I've got to say the instructions have been really clear to this point. Very good instructions indeed. We're clearly building up the tail section now. So we've got 2 parts plus this little end piece here. Then we've got a section going in. I'm guessing that's for the arrestor hook for the aircraft carrier landings. Nice to see that as a separate part. It means they've been able to mould lots of detail in. Then we put the tail section on separately. No doubt they have designed it so that the joins are actually panel lines, so that's lovely. Then we're putting the nose on, so this will be the first time we feel like we've got a plane in front of us. Then we've got cowlings, for want of a better word, going around the forward engine intakes. And then the ring is moulded as a separate piece, and that's nice because that's generally a metal colour, so we can paint that separately and then add it on after we've painted the main body, so that's good. Then we're building up the back end of the engines. There's a section going in there, and I'm not sure, is that a section of the wing or a section of the tail? Oh, it seems to be some form of flap, so it'd be part of the wing, I think. So yeah, wing flaps going in. Then we've got the V-shaped tail section going in, and the tail top being made up, two different parts put into place. Looks like we've got slight variation depending on which paint scheme you're doing. Then we're building up the air brakes, so clearly there's an option here for open or closed. We have a little note there to tell us that if you're building the air brakes open, you can miss out these two steps. Here, obviously alternatively, if you want them closed, you've only got 2 steps instead of 6 steps. But that looks nice and detailed. It looked lovely on the 172 scale one, so I imagine in 148 it's going to be stunning. Then we're at step 102, the underside of the aircraft. So we've got what looks like a clear part, appears to be clear parts going in. Probably put that on at the end by the looks of it. Then we've got end bulkhead for the bomb base, another part going in on the fuselage, and then you've again got another option, cover all that bomb bay up. Or you can leave it off and show all this lovely pipe work that they've put in, all separate parts, so they can be painted separately and attached. So if these are different colours, what are they calling out? 153, 85, 153, 85, 153, 165 and 166. So there's several different colours being called out on this pipe work. So that is going to look really nice and busy. Give it a bit of a wash, it'll be stunning. Absolutely lovely. Nice attention to detail from Airfix there. They could easily have moulded all that in. It wouldn't have looked as sharp and it would have been more difficult to paint. So whichever way they've approached it, whether it's to make it easier to paint or to make the detail more sharp, it really works well. We've got some hoses going in there as well, which are painted 53. Is that gunmetal 53? And then over to step 111, and we're starting to build up the landing gear. So that the wheels are 2 halves. And what they've done is they put a hole in so you can put it on a cocktail stick, makes it easy to paint, but we have got moulded in hubs. And this is happening a little bit at Airfix. They're doing some really great ideas and some innovation, and then they don't carry it through every kit. So we've got the mask system being used that was used in the Mosquito, which is absolutely lovely, phenomenal. And they've used it again, and that's great. But also in the Mosquito, we had separate hubs. So you could build the tyres together, put it on a cocktail stick, paint it all up, paint your hoods separately, put them in, everything's nice and crisp. They've not done that here. So it just means you've got to take a bit more care with the painting. But a good idea is a good idea, so keep doing the good idea. I would like to have seen separate hubs. Anyway, we haven't got separate hubs, so we work with what we've got. Having said that, the gear itself looks nice and busy. There's probably some cables to be put on there if you want to scratch build with a bit of wires. Then we've got the door going in, and then we're doing the same here. What is nice, though, is that they've given you some dimensions. See, 7.6, 11. So you can, with a compass cutter, make your own masks. So the fact that they've not put the hub in, they have considered the modeler. Thank you very much, that's lovely. And then the wheels click into place, don't need to be glued, so In theory they'll move, but of course they do have a flat on, so you shouldn't see much in the way of movement. And all three of the tyres have a flat on. I was commenting in a first impressions just yesterday that the tail wheels don't ever seem to be weighted when the other wheels are, but in this case they're all weighted, so that's nice. Shows decal placement there, so after you've done some painting there's quite a bit of cross-referencing to be done, just making sure that you've not missed anything. Then it shows the positions of them with your weighted tyre on the ground. Then we're adding the gear doors, more decals. So you could probably add that at the same time as you add that before you install it, I would think. Wingtips are clear parts, which will make it nice and easy for painting any lights in the tips. And then we're building up the arrestor hook. We've got an option there. Not quite clear what that option is though. Is that, don't know, up or down? Well, not quite sure. And then we are actually adding the hook. We've got some small details being added to the outside of the fuselage underneath there. And then at step 131, it's telling us to paint up 2 crew. So that means we've got a full complement, so that's nice. We then have a clear part going in, this sort of internal visor, and then we're starting to put the canopy in. It says wiperless or with wiper. Note the windscreen option with the wiper has been included to allow a photo etch wiper to be fitted. That's really nice. So when the aftermarket boys decide that they're going to put a photo etch wiper on, you use the canopy front that has no wiper on. Or if you're going to be like me and build it straight from the box, you can paint it up, job's a good one. That's a nice bit of thinking, that. Okay, then we've got 2 different canopies, A or B, C and D. A has the little elements in the glass there, so I'm hoping they put a decal or something to cover that off. We'll have a look when we get to the decals in a minute. And obviously we have an option for open or closed. The fuel nozzle going in, 1 or 2 other parts, some of which are clear. Then at 137 we are ordnance building, so again we've got separate parts so that they can mould the detail in. That's very nice. Tells you what they are as well. Anti-shipping missile, anti-radiation missile, didn't know there was such a thing, TV guidance data link pod, rocket launcher, slipper tank. Wow, that's really nice, because I wouldn't have known what any of those were. I would have assumed that they were all bombs of some type, and that's not the case. Step 154, and we're building up the mounts for the various different ordnance and stuff, and then we're starting to populate it depending on which scheme you've ended up going for. 164, we're building up the optional ladders, and they look really nice and busy with the handrails and well, the little supports that hold it into place. You can see there where it gets plugged in. So if you want to be ultra realistic, just drill little holes in the openings at each one of the rungs. You can see where they're attached there. Those are hollow rungs, and you can see right through them on the real thing. So then we're installing the 2 ladders for the 2 crew. Then we've got the shut-off engine blockers. So it tells you which way around to put it in. So that's nice. And we've also got them for the back, so they'll be a nice red colour. No doubt we've got some decals for them as well. And then finally, 171 steps, and we're plugging in our folded backed wings. 171 steps. Let's have a look at the paint call outs next. So as Airfix pretty much always do these days, especially on their larger kits, we have our paint schemes on separate, in this case A3 pages. Nice and clear, easy to follow layout. We've got our main paints listed in the top there. You can easily identify what's a decal by the red block, and if the number is not in the red block, then that's your paint. Obviously the main paint colour is this dark sea grey. So this is scheme A, and you can see we've got quite a lot of decals on the ordnance in various different places, some on the air brakes as well. There doesn't appear to be a decal for that, so you're going to have to try and paint that, which could be somewhat interesting, I would think. Yeah, they've certainly done them as decals before in their Hawk, I think. Okay, so that's paint scheme A, Ark Royal 78. We go over to B, and yeah, we can see a bit less ordnance, but we've got the same basic layout. We've got some decals on the engine blocks as well. I guess we had that on A, did I? Yeah, we had them on A. So same basic layout. There is a little template there. If you want the wings folded, you can cut that along the line. I would cut that out, put it on top of your decal, and you can use that as a positioning aid for your decal. So that's a nice little touch as well. C, the main difference with C is you've got this green ordnance. Otherwise, you're pretty much the same. It's just different decals. I do quite like this crest though. And then we have paint scheme D. Okay, and then in addition to our paint schemes, we've got stencil data positions on its own sheet. So this is common to all aircraft. And again, it's showing you some of the ones that you may have already come across on your individual paint scheme sheet. There's plenty of decals to go out there, which is nice to see. Got decals, lots of detailed decals going on. Somehow doesn't feel quite as busy as the Hunter, but nonetheless there's lots on there, and it's going to end up looking very, very authentic when you're done. So yeah, really like the instructions layout. It's standard for Airfix now. I think it's a really good way of doing it. So we have quite a large decal sheet, as you could imagine. And it has the usual format from Airfix, where we have a block which has all of our common decals, and there's a lot of them. They're all cartograph, as we know, so the decals, for me, they're best in class. You can't beat Airfix decals. They're really, really good. Well, interestingly, Airfix was saying recently that the cost of these decals can be almost as much as the plastic parts. So they're not skimping for us when they do this. Then we've got in separate boxes scheme A, B, C and D. And then we have a separate box with a coat of arms in. So I'm not quite sure why that's in a separate box. 803 Squadron. Oh, so that is part of D. So yeah, don't miss that. That is part of D. And then we've got our harnesses. So if we look at that, they're quite nice. Like I say, put that on a little bit of foil with a little bit of careful trimming, and you can manipulate those a little bit. Not quite sure what those are, but I'm sure when we study our instructions, will all come out. Decals are nice, not too much film. Even some of them, like Royal Navy, the A's and the O's, have got no backing in the gaps in the letters, so that's a nice touch. So as I can see here, in the 8, the centre of the 8s has got no decal film at all. So that's just going to help with placing parts and making sure you're reducing any risk of silvering. all very, very nice. So a lovely set of decals, a bit of care needed to look after them because the sheet is actually bigger than the instruction book. So keeping them safe is important. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of masking tape around these top and side edges and over the corners there, just to keep this on top and make sure it doesn't get damaged while I'm storing it before we actually get stuck into the build. There we go. That will keep it safe in the box until we are ready to do some work. And what I will do is I'll put it in the box upside down and we'll put our manual on top, and hopefully that'll keep it all safe. So our plastic is in multiple bags, and the first bag out, we can see we've got this heat sealed single bag that's been divided up. The Airfix have done this before, and we've got our clear parts in this bag separated, and then we've got our plastic parts. And the first thing I'm seeing straight away is we've changed the colour of the plastic. Let's take a closer look. Do this in the order that it comes out of the box and the bags so that I can put it back in the same order. So our first sprue out is sprue E, and what we can see is they put a nice little E in the centre there, so you can easily identify the sprue without having to try and read the frame letter that they've given it. And we've got our little recycling logo, so we know that when we finish with our sprue we can pop it in the recycling and we can get that recycled. PS meaning polystyrene. Yeah, we've changed the colour, so we've not got the usual recognisable Airfix blue grey. We've got this sort of greyy, slightly browny colour. Not quite sure how to describe it. I've not seen plastic in this colour before, I don't think, so yeah. The plastic is nice and hard. It's a real nice hard plastic. The recent kits from Airfix have all been in this harder plastic, and it's really good. Even the re-releases of things. So if you're buying into the current Flying Fortress, for example, it might be an older tool, but you'll get the hard plastic. So what we've got on here is, this is the Bombay door, moulded in a single piece. The detail is nice and crisp, as we'd expect for a first pressing. Lots and lots of detail around and look at that. There's no soft mould in here. Look at the detail on there. That looks like something you could just lift out, doesn't it? It's really nicely moulded, that. So this is our retainer hook, landing hook area here. And then we've got parts for going on the wings for the ordnance. It's all very crisp. The seam lines seem to be about right. Sometimes they get a bit criticised for them being oversized, and sometimes they get a bit criticised for being undersized, but these all look lovely. Got lots of nice recessed fastener detail. Some lovely moulding going on there. And you can see we've got this directional arrow pointing you to the front, so you put it on the right way round, which is nice. What I'll do is I'll take some photographs of not everything, but some of the key parts, so you can get some nice close-up shots, and we'll do that at the end. Okay, sprue H now. It's another good size sprue. The actual width of the sprue, as a rectangle, and the long width is just about the width of the box. So inside the box, this doesn't move around much at all. And we've got all sorts of bits of pipe work. We've got the ladders and the engine block-offs. Lots of different bits of pipe work, and some of the bits around the wing there. Yeah, really nice. And we've got that marked. Port, starboard, and the top to make sure you get it the right way around. Although they look almost identical, top and bottom, but clearly they think it's important you put them in the right way around. So let's just have a closer look at those. Some lovely texturing on those. Again, it's all really sharp. You see we've got our mask here, and then look at all that rivet detail. That's raised rivet detail on the inside there. Very, very nice. Some lovely fastener detail around there. Once you put a wash on that, it will look stunning. And we've got more pipe work. Nothing much on the other side. So this is a third sprue from the first bag, sprue G. And what I can see as I look at this is I've got a little bit of damage. It's minor, but we can see here that this has come away from its sprue gate, which has caused a small amount of surface damage. It's very, very minor. Okay, so we've got some heavier pipe work here. We've got the landing gear, which comes in 2 halves. We've got our weighted wheels and tyres, more of the landing gear. Then we've got our seats, gear doors, parts for the seats. That's the little bit that goes in the front of the cockpit there, front wheels, and some of the interior parts put inside the cockpit. There's no sink in any of this, although these aren't particularly big parts yet, but there is lots and lots of detail. We have got tread, and look at the detail on those doors there. Absolutely lovely. And the hubs look gorgeous. Really nice plastic. There's a little bit of sink there. That's because I said I couldn't see any sink. I don't know whether that's going to be visible or not, but very easy to sort that out. Less easy will be that there. I can just show you. It is between the 2 dials, but it is slightly taking the dial out of shape, so it's quite a thick piece of plastic there, and that's what's drawing it in, a bit of shrinkage. So a little bit of careful filling before you put your decal on. Might be less visible when painted. Might be more visible when painted, of course. Another part there that's come away from its frame, but we'll leave it. Detail on the seats is stunning. All the little fasteners there. Really, really nice. Tiny, tiny amount of sink on the landing gear. Just a little bit. Again, should be easy to rectify. It's quite a thick bit of plastic that. Maybe these should have been separate parts just to avoid that shrinkage, possibly. We'll have to see how that goes come the time. Our next bag has our clear parts. We know this is sprue I. We saw that in the instructions. And we've got some very, very clear transparencies here. So we've got our two canopy types and two different options there, with or without the window wiper. I think, is that a heating element in there? There is some distortion in there. Worse in that one, obviously, than that one. But the forward view is very, very clear. And actually, the glass itself is really, really clear. There's no scratches or anything on it. And we've got some really lovely clear lenses there. Slightly dome shaped, so they really shine. And then we've got our little edge pieces there. And you can see it's slightly matte where they want you to paint it up. So it's just the tip there that's not painted. Really nice. Some nice little lenses there as well. Paint the back of that in a chrome colour and that'll really shine out. Unless, of course, it's supposed to be red, in which case do that. Lovely. Really nice. Some nice lenses. Got our nice little wing tips. And anything that is matte is to be painted, so makes it easier to mask, although these things are always a little bit tricky. So yeah, I might be hand painting that, so I can just go in and tidy it up. Rather quicker to hand paint it than mask it. So our next bag has two large sprue in it, C and D. We'll take a look at C first. So C has some larger parts on than we've seen before. We've got bits there for the air brakes. We've got some of the flaps, the tail sections, and parts of the wings. And we've got lots and lots of textured detail on there. So lots of rivet patterns, all recessed. And then here we've got these little bits that are raised, of which we have to take the fifth one out. Then we've got the roots of the wings where they swing open with the hinges down. We've got pipework and bits and pieces. These, I think, are just support struts. They're internal, they're not seen, so I'm not going to worry about that little bit of sink. And then we've got little sections that we know go in around the engine areas, and that goes in behind where the air brake mounts. So some larger parts. Flip it over. What we can see on this side is they're using that donut connection point, which in the past, when they've used it, has caused issue with sync, but doesn't appear to have done in this instance, so that's great. Everything is very, very crisp. There's a bit of flash on the sprue, but there's nothing on the parts. All really, really crisp. Detail is superb, really nice. Okay, so there's our flaps, there's our air brake folding system. Go along this top edge first. There you go, you can see all that fastener detail in there. Really lovely. We've got our fuel nozzle. Tail parts. And then our wings. So this is the from the folded part out. Lots of detail. Lovely texturing. Gonna look really nice when built, this. If we flip it over, there's no real detail on most of the parts, I think, with the exception of these little flaps here, which are solid. Beautiful. Sprue D is our ordnance and tanks. There's a huge amount on there. So if you like sanding cylindrical items, you're going to be in your element when it comes to this. Obviously, depending on your paint scheme, quite a lot of this you're not building. Whichever scheme you go, you're ignoring some of it to build others of it, and some are very busy and some aren't. But yeah, the detail again is really nice. I like the thins are really quite thin, which they've managed to do by making them separate parts which slot into these slots here. So they look nice. Moulding is really good. Nice and crisp. Lovely detail on the mounts for them. They seem to mount by pins. You see little pins there, so that's for the, no doubt, the holes that we've drilled in the wings as we've gone. As we flip it over, I'm not seeing any sink in these parts, which are quite chunky plastic, so there could have been, but there isn't. So that's all good. No ejector pins to worry about. All lovely. They're pretty much all the same. So again, we've got another bag with 2 sprues in. So we've had 3 bags of sprues in total. And what we can see here, this is sprue B. We've got a lot of the engine parts, the nose bits and pieces, and the pilots. And yeah, it's basically a one-sided mould, so there's only detail on this side. So we've got these internal parts that we saw being built up in the instructions. And then we've got these engine bits, and don't they look lovely? Detail on there is really nice. Now, I think there's only one of these because you can only view the engine on one side. I think that's right. From looking at the instructions, that's how it appeared to me. There's lots of little wires and bits and pieces on here. It's really lovely. Pilots. They are both identical. They look nice actually. There's no, given that they're quite a chunky bit of plastic, they've hollowed the back out to avoid any shrinkage, and that's worked well. So they look great. These bulkheads we saw going in, again, lots of wiring details, wiring looms. This is our cockpit bulkhead, lots of raised fastener detail. In the visible areas around the engines, you've got all sorts of detail in there, really nice. This is our little weight container. And then we've got that back bulkhead of the bomb bay. The nose, lots of raised and recessed detail all at the same time. That looks really good as well. And then we've got the engine fans, and they are really lovely. Look at them. They almost look like they're spinning when you look at them. They're really cleverly done. You've not got that sort of soft slat look to them that you usually get. They're really crisp. That is excellent. That's outstanding moulding. Really cleverly done. And we can see on this piece here, again, we can see all that little detail inside. Lots of wiring and so on. They've made it really nice and busy. Really good. Let's just run you through them. So you can pause at any time if you want to take a closer look. And we'll take some photos. So I've just repeatedly said this is the nose, but clearly it's the tail. So our last sprue is A, and this is pretty much the size of the box, this sprue. It goes in, you've got a little bit of a gap, say that much at the top, so there's a little bit of movement in the box, but the box is so tightly packed in that things aren't going to move around and get damaged really. And this, on sprue A, we've got all our large parts here, so we've got upper and lower fuselage centre section, we've got the tail section, cockpit floor, air intake and exhaust parts. The air brake has one single moulded piece, and then our nose part of the fuselage, and then our little air intake rings separately. And there's tons of detail, particularly on the underneath, and you're going to want to mount that on a mirror or something so you can see all of that. Absolutely lovely. So let's just take a closer look. So this is our nose cone. We can see lots of panels there. So those of you that love your scratch building and know what's behind there, you can get stuck in. We've got a very nicely detailed air brake with all the little rivets. We've got raised and recessed detail. Absolutely, that is so busy. There's no reason you wouldn't have that on. That's just lovely. Our other side of our nose cone, just the same, no sink, nice and crisp. Then we've got our centre section here. Look at all the detail on that. In the instructions, those just look like lumps, but each one of those lumps has got a ring of fasteners around the outside of it, and it'll come up better in the photograph. Really nice. Then we've got our little air intake rings. Got our tail section. I'm going to turn it around just for ease of handling. Tail section, again, lots of panel lines with lots of fastener detail. Really nice. No issues with the moulding of that. Then we've got our cockpit floor, which looks basic here, but we know there's tons of separate parts going into that. And there's the larger one that goes behind that forward seat. Some nice detail on there. I thought that was a mould seam then in the light, but it's actually a joint. That is really nice. Have we got in the inside? There's no real detail on this side. Oh yes, there is. In the nose cones, we've got some internal detail. Injector pin. We've got probably about 3 ejector pins that will be visible. But because of the size of it, it's not going to be an issue to clean them up at all. Sometimes they just can't avoid it. They do try, we know they try. And then this is the section that we can cut out to have a look at the engine. So yeah, there's only one engine you can view. Cool. So there you have it. Airfix's 1:48 scale Blackburn Buccaneer S2C/D. New tool for 2022. What are my first impressions? Well, let's see. It's lovely. There is loads and loads of detail being crammed into there. I love the fact that we've got an option to see the engine. We've got air brakes open or closed. We've got lots of ordnance options that they've given us by giving us 4 different paint schemes. I think there was a little bit of sink in a couple of parts, but literally it was 2 or 3 parts, very, very minor. Other than that, I couldn't find any issues with the moulding. It was crisp, it was detailed, it wasn't soft moulded at all, and they'd crammed lots and lots into it. I think this is going to build up to be a stunning kit, and probably Airfix's flagship release for 2022, I would imagine. It's going to be a popular kit, this, I'm sure of it. The decals are great, and there's plenty of them, so when you finish your model, it's going to look really nice and realistic. There's plenty for the modeler to do, so there's lots of drilling, some modifications and things depending on what you want to do. So There's a bit more to it than a straight build, which is nice. Some of us like that. Highlights generally, the fact that they've created landing gear masks again. That's brilliant. I absolutely love them. The fact that they've thought about aftermarket and put a photo etch available windscreen on, so you can add some photo etch for the wiper. I think that was a lovely touch. The instructions are very, very clearly laid out with all the options, very clear in what you need to be doing, which is why you get so many steps. That's it. I mean, I think the aftermarket boys are going to struggle here because there's so much detail put in. So, yeah, you're bound to get some resin wheels or something like that, but I'd question whether you really need it, because the level of precision in the tooling of this and the production of this is so high. Just build out of the box. Just build out of the box. 72 quid. It's going to take you a little bit of time to build it. I think that's a great return on your money. So I think it's stunning, and I'm actually looking forward to building it. I have the 172 version as well, and that's nicely detailed as well. I think when I tackle this, I'm going to do it wings up, engine open, and the ladders on. I might even do one wing up, one wing down, which I know strictly ain't right, but just want to show the model off. So yeah, really lovely kit. Be interested to know what you think of it. Let me know in the comments below. I hope that was useful. If you're considering buying into this, can't see why you wouldn't. Honestly can't. So take care everyone, you enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.